What does Brunswick County have to do with the inlet? Stick around and find out on this episode of Oregon Inlet.
Right now, it's as good as it's been in probably 10 plus years. Big and little boats say the same thing. You know, they're not going to take a chance coming in on a northeast wind when the tide's ebbing. And, you know, it ain't that great.
It's actually made an improvement.
Yeah. Thanks to Miss Katie and a little bit of help from the Corps, a couple elected politicians, Congressman Murphy, putting the fire, getting the buoys out there, getting them on station.
Would you say that the private dredge would be the reason?
Absolutely. Yeah. Private dredge is here to stay, and he's not on no time frame.
Any pitfalls, anything that has held the dredge back?
Yeah, there was some problems with the Corps. Sand samples, the silt, so they stopped that for 2 or 3 weeks when the dredge first started working. We've been dead in the water for 10 years. Put the Miss Katie to work.
Yes, sir. The North Carolina For-Hire Captain Association reached out to me and explained their situation. And it was very similar to Oregon Inlet. So let's see what they have to say about the Lockwood Folly Inlet.
Turning now to an update on Lockwood Folly Inlet in Brunswick County. The depth is still decreasing, the danger increasing. According to Oak Island Water Rescue, a boat capsized in the inlet last weekend. No injuries were reported. Oak Island Water Rescue now advising boaters against using the inlet, especially at low tide, saying that some areas of the inlet are now only 2 feet deep.
Lockwood Folly selects.
We got to go down the river through the inlet.
Each of these inlets correspond with the rivers that go up.
I know there's something in the water. There's no question about it.
The river is in a major state of peril.
The state, if it rains 1 inch, they automatically close this river to shellfish.
The inlet is not open, it's very shoaled up.
It's going to cause that backflow, that inability for the river to desilt itself, to keep itself clean, to improve the conditions for oystering, to improve all the conditions for really everything that depends on the river, including us.
We have oyster beds, we have clams, we have shrimp, we have, of course, the fish that exist in here. You got ducks, you got the terns, you got the pelicans, the seagulls, you've got the fiddler crabs. I mean, it all boils down to even to the microorganisms that each and everything we have here feeds on.
The environmental side of it pays the price as well, because Lockwood Folly River doesn't get to flush, and our marshes don't get to flush like they should if the water can't get back out to the ocean.
I don't think you can get just naturally salty oysters like you can right here at the inlet.
My biggest fear is we lose our buoys and our status as a shallow draft inlet and they abandon.
When the Coast Guard pulls our buoys, they mark it as an unnavigable inlet. Basically, if you're a charter captain or a commercial fisherman and you go out of that inlet and something happens, because that's an unnavigable inlet, that's on you.
They pull the buoys out of there, then by law, charters aren't supposed to go out there. Insurance won't cover you.
There's not but 5 shallow draft inlets in North Carolina. Lockwood Folly is one of them. So when we lose our navigational aids, we lose a funding stream.
The Corps does the permits, but they also do the dredging. State of North Carolina and local government is paying the tab for them to dredge.
We just have to do a better job in educating people on all levels. And my father, who was the first mayor of Holden Beach, he fought it his lifetime and supported terminal groins and jetties.
There's no question you're going to have to keep it dredged. They have to do beach renourishment. It's just a constant thing that has to be done. You're going to have to dredge an inlet. It's no different than you have to cut your grass.
The majority of people in North Carolina don't realize how the commercial fishing industry is impacted by these inlets.
The status of the Lockwood Folly Inlet, its importance is dependent on who you ask. To me and my business partner Daniel, it's our lifeline. It's how we make our living. We go through that inlet every single day.
This is our greatest resource here in Brunswick County, the Atlantic Ocean, right? Would you agree?
It's not gonna hurt just us, it's gonna hurt the whole surrounding area.
I feel like I live at the beach. I'd like to get my captain's license, but I'd also like to try and do some bigger contests in surfing. We actually got waves for once, and it was like a week of where we had, you know, some waves coming in, but the algae was so bad, we didn't know what it was or like if it could like make me sick or anything.
So the dredges have to stay out of that whole, they call it the Civil War district. So there's this whole area that they can't go through, they can't dredge through because those 4 boats are there.
There are 4 Civil War shipwrecks in the Lockwood Folly Inlet. The Elizabeth, a Confederate blockade runner, was sunk by Union gunfire on September 24th, 1863. Bendigo, a Confederate blockade runner that was sunk, and the captain set her on fire on January 3rd, 1864. The Ranger, a Confederate blockade runner that was fleeing the Union, ran aground and was set on fire on January 11th, 1864. Iron Age, a Union warship that ran aground attempting to float the shipwreck Bendigo, was put to torch on January 11th, 1864, the same day as the Ranger.
There's been countless accidents of people running across that wreck and putting a hole in their boat, damaging it, sinking. And there's been quite a few people that's hit that wreck. And I would say that's your biggest obstacle in the Lockwood Folly Inlet is that Civil War wreck.
You know, how my boat pushed sideways up onto the shoal where waves were hitting me, trying to flip me over.
Laid the boat on its side, flipped us right back up, and we kept going through, but getting caught between the waves.
It was low tide, and honestly, I saw 0.8 feet under my boat.
With the worst of the inlet, me and Daniel's going out that inlet at dead low tide at its worst, and we've came in it. We just tilt our motors up and we deal with it.
Since I've been a youngin', they've had every congressman come election time to come down here, got on them shrimp boats, rode down to the inlet, and said, we're gonna get you a jetty. As soon as the election was over, that was the end of that. I mean, it's been going on for 30 years. These commercial fishermen have been promised a jetty.
What are the chances of a jetty getting built here?
The best they've been in 60 years.
How so?
Nobody's asked. Nobody's really officially asked and pushed for it since they built the Wrightsville Beach and the jetty at Wrightsville Beach and the jetty at Little River. And it's the same thing for Oregon Inlet. They need one.
They're the 2 worst inlets, in my opinion, and North Carolina, as far as attention. They don't get the attention that they need from the government.
And really, Oregon Inlet probably needs it worse than we do.
You really got to pay attention on running in and out of both of them as well.
All they're doing is dredging nonstop. And we're throwing millions of dollars at it every year and getting nowhere. They're trying to play catch up and they never catch up.
He's on a schedule. Pretty much if the work's not done, he's still got to go. Natural water flow has created a pretty good little channel right there. They're dredging on their plan. They dump all of their water right into our channel, pretty much leveling it off, not doing a damn thing. And then when they leave and it's time to go somewhere else, it's planed off. It's got to start its whole cycle back again.
And that's why we feel like we need a permanent solution now. You know, we need a jetty, or we need our own dredge, you know, one or the other.
Right now there's a big war about the state and overfishing and all that stuff. Overfishing compared to where? There's 1/3 the boats here than there was when I was growing up. 1/3. See, what it is, because the reason there's not any boats, there's not any stuff. The reason there's not anything to catch is because of the environment. And mostly here is pollution. This river's dying, I've watched it in my lifetime. I've been on it nearly 70 years.
Somehow or another, it's hitting their water tables.
Would that affect the estuaries? And if it does, would that affect fishing?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Every time you blacktop a road, and it rains 4 inches, there's a certain amount that's going in there. I mean, the population's growing. So, you know, it ain't just here, it's everywhere you go away from here.
That
Pharmaceutical, look how many people taking pills and, you know, and all that waste that goes into a drain field, well, it don't go down in the ground, what, 20, 30 foot, and it's probably figuring out a way to get to some kind of water. Birth control. A lot of birth control pills are going in bodies that's going in the ground. Well, if that'll keep you from producing a human, what do you think it would do to a fish?
So we learned that the Lockwood Folly Inlet and the Oregon Inlet have a lot in common. Shifting sands, shoaling, and it poses the question, if Oregon Inlet was stabilized, would water quality rise? We also learned that Miss Katie has made a big impact in Oregon Inlet and have kept the waterways pretty decent. Now, the Oregon Inlet can shift and change within hours, weeks, and months. So what we're gonna do is pause Oregon Inlet for the time being, and I feel obligated to cover what's going on with the East Coast and the industrialization of the ocean with offshore wind.
Has anybody told you why it's happening?
We just don't know. The only thing we know is what we know from out here.
Oh, it'll destroy the commercial fishing industry.
Over here is somewhere where I picked up the depth charge.
We have 1,500 square miles of effectively a no rescue zone.
They sold the ocean.
A death whale is a dead whale.
Dozens have died, and there's no interest in figuring out what's really going on at all.
What we're looking at currently is about 3,000 turbines for the East Coast.
So who's making this flick?
This episode of Oregon Inlet is proudly sponsored by Jacktail. Let Jacktail help you with all your storage needs. It's on the right when you're headed into Wanchese, North Carolina.